Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the EGNR News at 6. Tonight, addiction, intrigue, action, everything we know you need. Our top story. Seems like every time we turn around, we hear about a new plague on our fellow teenagers. Tobacco, pot, cocaine, alcohol, Japanese culture. But tonight, I bring you the terrifying news of the latest threat. Has your best friend been losing their appetite, sleeping irregularly, enunciating everything they say? Then I'm sorry, but your friend may be hooked on phonics. First developed by the Phoenicians several hundred years before Christ, it was created as a way to found an easily recorded and read written language. Innocent enough, or so it seemed. Soon major corporations began selling this on a terrifyingly larger scale, pushing phonics on anyone and everyone who would listen. Who could it hurt? We're educating them. One shot of this vile stuff and your kids are dotting T's and crossing I's like a librarian on speed. All fine and dandy until, ladies and gentlemen, meet photosynthesis. Or as our friends now know him, photosynthesis. That's right. Our friends and neighbors everywhere are now overpronouncing almost everything they say. If we don't band together and fight this, soon enough, phonics will have us all. Moving on. Now on a lighter note, we turn to a bit of a local hero. Now as you all know, after George Bush's inexplicably flawless success in liberating the captive American oil from Iraq, he has turned his terror-seeking sights on yet another target, the small fossil fuel-rich nation of Iranistan. As part of this endeavor, Bush has called for yet another UN inspection for weapons of mass destruction, this time within Iranistanian borders. One member of that team is none other than local high-level atomic explosivologist, Dr. Andrew Nicholson. Our Iranistanian bureau chief, John Johns, investigates.
Thank you, John. Many people have wondered whether or not George W. Bush would stop his crusade to free the captive American oil from the small nation of Iraq. The answer is no. He has now changed his sights to the small community nation of Iranistan. I'm here with Dr. Andrew Nicholson, who's part of a UN-sanctioned search team. Their target are weapons of mass destruction. I'm going to go sit down with him and see what he has to say. So, Dr. Andrew, what makes you think you're qualified for such a mission? Well, John, the reason I'm qualified for this is that I'm the only man in the world with a PhD in atomic explosivology. What university did you go to attain such a degree? University? What? I went to community college for 3.5 years, graduated top of my class. But I thought you said you were the only one in your class. Well, I was the only one who was in my class, but I graduated on top. Right. So have you found any weapons of mass destruction? I've taken a medal. Back to you, John. You're probably...
And now for your weather.
Thanks, John. The weather looks to be about the norm for this time of year, with scattered showers throughout the region on Monday, followed by overcast on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. On Friday, there's an 80% chance of rapture, followed by a 97% chance of scattered apocalypses throughout the region on Saturday. The UV index will be through the roof, so stay inside, slather on some sunscreen, and try and avoid the hellfire. Back to you, John.
Thanks, John. With more on that, John.
Thank you, John. Has your town had an increase in violence or aggression? Have vandalism rates shot up? If you answered yes to any of these questions, your town may be a victim to angry vegans. When our sources contacted the experts, the answer was a little unnerving. If you have small children or toddlers, please ask them to leave the room. According to the experts, the absence of meat in your diet can cause a chemical imbalance in your brain. With this imbalance, one can experience adrenaline-induced rage. These can be minor, but they can also be very serious. Here are some angry vegans. In some cases, however, these angry vegans have just walked down the street, rage-filled, and destroyed everything in sight. But fortunately for us, there is a cure. All they have to do is eat red and preferably raw meat. And back to you, John.
Moving on. Our next story comes to us from the world of entertainment. A local celebrity and star of such movies as Fractured Back Hill and the Attack Ryan promotional series, Ryan Rowe is the star to many, many young people in this community. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is my sad, sad duty to report that that star has fallen and crashed and burned and then smoldered for a little while, then reignited and then fizzled out. Last week, Ryan Rowe was pulled over for driving at excessive speeds. The police officer approached the vehicle, and after several seductive attempts to evade the ticket, Ryan succumbed. As he leaned over to retrieve his registration, he opened the glove compartment and released 20 kilos of high-grade cocaine, more than his own body weight in illegal narcotics. When asked to comment, Ryan stated that he was very hungry about what he'd done. Ryan Rowe has now been officially charged with reckless driving, driving over the speed limit, assaulting a police officer, evading arrest, fleeing the scene of an accident, possession of narcotics, and misrepresenting the weight of livestock. Now, I'm sorry, folks, but I just can't understand what kind of a moron, what kind of an idiot you would have to be to incorporate a guy with this kind of background and this kind of attitude into your company. Let's find out. Joining me now, CEO Kenny Ernst of Ernst Gladders Nicholson Rowe Productions. Mr. Ernst, good to have you on the show.
Good to be here, John.
Now, I'm sorry, but I just need you to help me understand. Why did you hire this guy? I mean, he has a history of things like this, and well, just look at him.
Well, now I don't think that's quite right. You see, when we first considered him for the role, we did extensive psychological and behavioral testing. But no real blip showed up on the radar. With everything that we had, this was quite unforeseeable.
But what about his past? I mean, he has a history of things like this, and look at where he grew up. I mean, you had to see this kind of scandal on the horizon.
Well, I guess we hadn't really considered that.
Apology accepted. So now what? Where, as a company, do you go from here?
Well, of course, we can't just let him hang out to dry. I mean, he needs us to back him now more than ever. We're already setting plans to finance his rehabilitation so we can get him back on the set, healthy and ready to go as soon as possible.
But what about a relapse? I mean, what if he goes back? How far as a company do you go for one actor?
Well, John, he's obviously a very important part of the EGNR family. But if he cocks up one more time, he's dead meat.
I see. Well, very insightful. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, EGNR CEO Kenny Ernst. We'll be right back. Thanks, John. And for our next story, we go again to the world of entertainment with our head Hollywood bureau chief, John Johnner.
Thank you, John. For those of you familiar with the movie 300, you'll be happy to know that there's a sequel. 2. That's right, 2. This movie is about the son of Leonidas and the son of Xerxes. They battle through the entire thing. Yes, it's one very deep and thought-provoking movie. And it's being aired before our time at Sammy's Cinema in High Level. Buy it, $39,000.
Thank you very much, John. And now we go to the world of sports with our senior sports bureau chief, John Johns.